Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, August 6th, another edition of One True Sport Daily. I am your host, Ryan Droste. No Zach Haydorn. Again, he is out on vacation this week, but I do have a rotating group of awesome guest co-hosts this week. Yesterday, we had Jesse Velasquez from the Top Rope Nation podcast, our podcast, filling in here on One True Sport Daily. And today, I've got another fun one. You know him from Fightful.com. I had a chance to meet up with this guy at Dynamite about a month and a half ago in Des Moines, but we've never done a podcast together, even though we've met up in person. So I'm really excited, thrilled to have him on the show from the great state of Minnesota, my friend Rob Wilkins. Rob, welcome to One True Sport Daily, sir.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to do this, and I'm excited to do a podcast with you and the great state of Minnesota. Wow, you don't hear that too often. So thank you. And yeah, I'm excited. Last night was a really good Raw. I thought like one of the best post SummerSlam shows for sure. So I'm excited to talk about it. And thanks again for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm obligated. My wife's from Minnesota. She's a Rochester, Minnesota native, so I have to be friendly to Minnesota. And I mean, look, our Minnesota nice neighbor to the north, me being here in Iowa, and certainly Minnesota in the news this morning too. So we gotta compliment Minnesota a little bit. So yeah, I'm excited to have you.
It's crazy. Yeah, like you said in the news this morning, Governor Walz, he literally taught high school 2 blocks from where I'm at right now, and he lived 4 blocks from where I'm at right now. So it's just surreal knowing that stuff. It's the last thing I would have ever expected. So it's crazy. So
Insane, just a regular dude, man. I mean,
yeah,
it's
just a
it's, it's
regular guy.
crazy. Yeah.
We'll see.
Absolutely. Guys, if you have never tuned into this show before and you're checking us out because Rob is here, we'd appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel. One True Sport is a great new project here that we've got going. Involves some of the biggest legends in the history of professional wrestling. If you check out the channel, we got content dropping from Rob Van Dam, Kurt Angle, Arn Anderson, who you just saw at SummerSlam, the Million Dollar Man, Ted DiBiase. The list goes on and on. Lance Archer, a current star, just did a live stream on the show or on the channel a couple of days ago. He's around these parts as well. We got memberships. If you go to onetruesport.com, you can find out how to become a member and you get access to private question and answer sessions with some of the biggest legends in the history of professional wrestling. So we would appreciate your support. And if you don't want to become a member, just like the video. That would help out One True Sport Daily a lot. And the other way you can help out One True Sport Daily and Rob and myself is by leaving us a super chat. So if you want to guarantee that your question or thought gets read on the air, hit us with the super chat. We will make sure to feature you here on the live stream. We will get to all of those throughout the show tonight. And check out my show, Top Rope Nation, every Thursday night here on YouTube. You have to subscribe to our channel. Just search Top Rope Nation on YouTube or wherever podcasts are found. And as I said at the top, you can find Rob over at Fightful.com. I'll let him promote all of his work here in a little bit before we sign off. But Rob, let's talk about Monday Night Raw. As you said, it was a pretty good follow-up, I thought, to SummerSlam last night in Baltimore. And I think the place to start really is, they set the tone right away. We now know who Gunther is going to defend the world title against at Bash at Berlin. Might have shocked some people. What do you think of Randy Orton coming over to Monday Night Raw and getting thrust into that position?
I thought it was surprising. I thought it was a good idea because it makes sense. I know a lot of people, based on online chatter, which this might shock a lot of people, some people did not like it. I think it's good because it made sense to me. The reason why is because of the prior match at King of the Ring. Randy's shoulder did not go down, and they even talked about it. They tied it up last night, and they said why. And I even liked what Gunther said. He said, "I don't get surprised often," and that was quite a surprise. I like how they made it make sense. I think that's a good main event match, and it helps set the tone for Gunther as well going in with this title reign. Uh, I don't expect him to lose this title that quickly, so I think it's a good start for his title reign. and we saw how good that match was last time. So I'm I think this is a good way to go for both of them. It gives Randy a chance to main event a pay-per-view again, and Gunther kicks off his title reign with a good opportunity.
Yeah. So, I had mentioned you were on Top Rope Nation over the weekend on our SummerSlam review, and you guys, I was not able to do that. I was up in Minnesota actually, but I listened to the show, of course. And you and Jesse and Justin, you kind of talked about. Uh, sorry, my internet is getting slow. I don't know why. What's happening? Can you still hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So you guys had talked about like potential directions for both Cody Rhodes and Gunther. And there was some ideas put out there which maybe on paper would have been a better match, like Ilya Dragunov. And I like that as a hardcore wrestling fan. And these guys had a match of the year contender before. You could put, especially doing the match in Europe, Gunther and Ilya would be huge. But when you look at raw star power, it's pretty hard to disagree with putting Randy Orton in there. I am curious what this is going to mean for Cody, because you guys had also talked about how they could really, whenever they could put Cody into a feud with Randy, and Randy can turn heel, and that will be a top feud for Cody, who doesn't have a lot of people to work with over on SmackDown, especially with Bloodline and everything happening there. But that said, I don't think that this is going to be a long-term feud. So, I mean, I'm totally fine with it. As you hit on, it makes a lot of sense with the way the King of the Ring match turned out. I remember talking about that on our podcast at the time. Like, oh, Randy had his shoulder up. They clearly can come back to that whenever they want. And, here we are. So it's logical storytelling. Sure, it'll be a good match. I mean, the crowd popped for it. I thought it was really interesting how, Gunther's he's not healing it up too much. He came across as, very respectful. There was even like chants for him when he first came out. There's some more of that from the Baltimore crowd that we can get into here in a little bit, where they didn't really play into the typical babyface heel scenarios. But I mean, they gave Gunther his props for winning the world title. And then these two had a pretty respectful back and forth. I did like the touch where they got in each other's face off mic, and the camera, really zoomed in them. It actually called back to something we saw at that Dynamite in Des Moines when AEW had Ospreay and Swerve do the face-to-face. And I recall a mutual friend of ours telling us, how they had done that on purpose because you brought it like right into your living rooms for them talking off air or off mic like that, made it more real. They did the exact same thing on Raw last night with these two, and I really appreciate that. I thought that was a nice little touch.
Yeah, it was really good, and when they do that, it lets you, as a viewer, let your imagination go into it. Like, what are they saying? Like, what are they thinking? Um, like, what's Randy saying? What's Gunther saying? We know Gunther's like not afraid. We know Randy's definitely not afraid. So they're just trying to do the mind games per se. So going into it, I'm excited again for this match. And as far as like where they're going directional wise, I know I thought one option could have been Sami Zayn because of how Gunther like
Mm-hmm.
maybe wanted his win back, something like that. I mean, it would have been kind of weird for somebody to lose their Intercontinental title so quickly and then go back into the world title picture. But I thought they could have made it make sense that way. But I like how they went into this. This makes more sense. Randy, they put Randy in there, and I like how they made it make sense from a Triple H standpoint, from the head honchos. Like, hey, you know what? You lost, but did you? And they did talk about how the referee's decision is final, but still, you got robbed. So we're putting you in this. Let's
Yeah.
test Gunther out. I liked how they tied everything together. So they're going the right direction, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, chat pretty active here talking about this. Eddie, who's a member of One True Sport here, he's talking about how Dragunov hasn't done enough yet to earn a shot at Gunther. I mean, yeah, I agree. I think doing a match like that would have just been kind of a nod to the European crowd and their history in NXT UK and everything. You could certainly have him win like a number one contender match or something to put him into the match. But I agree with you. I think Sammy is probably going to be the first like real deep feud that Gunther has as world champion. I think this will be just kind of a one-off. and then maybe you go to Sammy because of, Sammy's history and beating him for the IC title. I think that would be a good direction where they could have maybe even multiple pay-per-view cycles. And then I think, you send Orton back over to SmackDown. Maybe he does something with Cody. That's kind of, they've been planting those seeds, him staring at the title belt. Everyone's seen the screenshots on social media and everything like that. They could get to that whenever. And I mean, that's also just a high star power feud for Cody, who really hasn't had that since he's been world champion. He's kind of had these very brief feuds. He worked AJ. This Solo Sikoa thing was just kind of a backdrop for Roman returning. And I feel like Cody hasn't had much to sink his teeth into as far as like a deep feud yet on SmackDown, but his history with Randy could be that here in a couple of months. Maybe. We'll see. So
Yeah, I agree with that too, and I'm very curious to see what direction they go with him, because it's it's a matter of time. I know AJ's scheduled to come back this Friday. I don't see them going back into the AJ thing, so I'm kind of wondering if, as much as I like Kevin Owens as a face, I'm kind of wondering if they're going to go that route where Kevin Owens is like, okay, I'm done messing around. I want a title shot. It, I think that could be a possibility because we know Kevin Owens can be that heel. Like he can be that vicious heel that Cody needs. And they can bring this out for quite a while if they need to.
yeah, absolutely. I agree. Let's shift focus now to the other big storyline on Raw, and that of course is Punk after his loss to Drew McIntyre. Seth Rollins getting involved in everything too. So Punk comes out to the ring after losing to McIntyre 2 nights earlier, and he ends up getting interrupted by Seth Rollins, who comes out, and it looked like these two were get into a fight right away. In fact, right when Seth was stepping through the ropes, but then Drew McIntyre comes out, and McIntyre's up in the crowd on the steps, and he's going back and forth with Punk, and he's showing off the bracelet again, and he talks about his ugly dog, and then he said something about AJ, and when he mentioned Punk's wife, then Punk took off and he chased him up through the stands. He didn't get to McIntyre later in the show. Punk was backstage, and Adam Pearce told him that McIntyre had been sent home. But then what happened in the ring is, out of nowhere, Rollins gets attacked by Bronson Reed, and he gave him the splash off the top rope like 6 times. The crowd went absolutely crazy for this, which was kind of odd since Seth Rollins is the baby face out here. But again, like, the Baltimore crowd was kind of all over the map. I think they were just excited to see a big story, kind of come out of nowhere like this with a guy like Bronson Reed. What did you think of this segment here, Rob?
It was very good. I liked how they went because we were thinking that, okay, this makes sense. Again, they're making sense. They're going from Seth Rollins to CM Punk, which we're thinking, and then Drew comes down and he's being just this prick that he's been, and he brings up AJ Lee's name, which that, like, that's first when he said AJ's again, like, name again, that was just very interesting, I thought. And I liked how Seth's reaction was when Punk left. He was just like irritated, like I was thinking they were trying to set something up, and for the longest time I thought they were going to set something up for a 3-way match, and then all of a sudden Bronson Reed did what he said he was going to do. He said to Adam Pearce, "I know what I have to do. I have to cause, like, basically mayhem," or I don't know the exact wording he chose, but he basically said what he was going to do, and he went out there and did it. The crowd ate it up. Again, like you said, I was not expecting them to react that way. They loved it. Seth Rollins got destroyed. They made Bronson Reed look better last night than they have since he's been there, and that is crazy to me. I cannot believe how they did that. And he, as Eddie says in the chat, they made him look like a monster. Why they didn't do that from the get go is just beyond me, because last night they did it. Like, and I like that mindset he has, because if they continue with that, he could be just a force now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Seth sold it awesome. You know, like it looked like the attack was over, and then like Bronson would get back in there, another splash. Seth is like spitting up blood throughout the attack. It was really, really well done. So I mean, I guess this is how they get Rollins away from Punk for a little bit. You know, now he's got to conquer Bronson Reed or try to, and now you can go back to Punk and McIntyre and keep that just a one-on-one thing. And eventually, you know, you get to Rollins and Punk. Probably, maybe they hold it off till Mania season. We know that that was going to be a WrestleMania match last year. We'll see how quickly they get to it, but I do like it in the respect that it can get Rollins away from this, because I did feel like the match at SummerSlam, Rollins just was like kind of distracting. He was kind of stealing attention from Drew and Punk, that was the real blood feud. You know, that's what's been going on for months. Sure, Rollins has that history with Punk, and they played into that right when Punk got back to WWE. I think McIntyre and Punk, I didn't really like it getting muddied with Rollins out there too. So I like this and giving some separation to that story. You can continue to have Punk and McIntyre play their thing out, and you know, get back to Rollins later. And here, hopefully, Rollins can help elevate Bronson Reed a little bit up the roster, because you're exactly right, Rob. They made him feel more important than, you know, ever in his entire career last night in one night, and it was great. Matthew in the chat, Bronson killed that. Immediately rebuilt the man. Absolutely, can't disagree whatsoever. It was good stuff, really good stuff. Check that out if you didn't see it. Well, let me ask you this, Rob. What did you think of the way they played out the Judgment Day stuff last night? So, you know, Priest came out. He was angry at Finn, of course. Priest got a great response from the crowd. I've loved watching this turn that he has done in just a matter of weeks, really, where he went from the heel side to this cool baby face that everyone likes cheering. And you know, Finn was backstage, so he's on the Tron, and he doesn't get to really see him in person. And then Priest is on this rampage going after all of Judgment Day. Eventually, he ends up having this match with JD McDonough, where he pretty much obliterated McDonough. You did eventually get Carlito coming out, Dominic coming out, Liv coming out. Everyone kind of split off. Then Rhea Ripley comes out, you know, and she lays out Liv Morgan. Priest gave JD McDonough like this massive, massive choke slam where about took the guy's head off. It was insane looking. I know your boss, Sean Ross Sapp, had put that out on his Twitter account. Like, there's a clip of it on Sean's account if you want to see it. What did you think of all of this and the follow up to Damian losing the title and the new Judgment Day versus Priest and Rhea now kind of being their own separate group?
It was very entertaining. I will say that. I liked how they were going with this. When they were beating down Damian, I knew that I knew that Rhea was going to come out. She was going to get this massive pop. We knew that was going to happen. I liked how they went. They let Rhea actually grab Liv, because I did not want them to have back-to-back segments where somebody leaves the crowd and they don't get the person they're going after, because you just had that with Punk going after Drew. I thought that would have been really bad if they did that again back-to-back. So the fact that she was able to actually get a hold of Liv, that was good. And then they make it back into the ring. Rhea hit JD with a headbutt, which I'm shocked I didn't give her a headache with that size melon he has. So,
Yeah.
you know, and then Damian nailed him and with a big one, and just I love that whole segment. It was good, and you know, this is going to lead to some interesting battles. So I'm very curious to see where this leads to for them, because we know Damian's pissed, we know Rhea's pissed. Where this leads, everything to me shows like a Hell in a Cell match potentially for Damian and Finn. And
Mm-hmm.
I do really like that Finn showed what started this, like what the moment this all
Yes.
became relevant. That was good. It made sense. I like how they're making stuff make sense. That is a lot different from back in the day. And when I say back in the day, even a year ago, that's the thing that I find very important, is trying to make things make sense. And the fact that they did that was really good. I
Yeah.
am very, I use the word intrigued a lot. I'm very intrigued to see where this goes because I believe that Damian and Rhea will overcome this. And I noticed a lot last night. They used both Judgment Day, like for Rhea and Damian, but they also said the new Judgment Day quite a bit. So I'm kind of curious to see what they do. Does that necessarily mean that Damian and Rhea will look for new potential members? I don't really think so. So I mean, it's up in the air. We'll have to see. But I enjoyed that, and I hope that they keep this going for a little longer. I mean, it's just technically starting, so I know this is going to go through at least October, and I'm hoping that at Bad Blood these are Hell in a Cell matches.
Yeah. No, I like that with Damian Finn in a Hell in a Cell. That would be good way to pay this off. I kind of agree with what you were saying. I don't really want to see him have two factions. I think you should have Rhea and Damian just kind of stand on their own. They're allies. We all know their history, but they don't have to, form a full on stable or anything like that. I kind of like it just this dynamic that they have right now. And great point you brought up about how they showed and Finn alluded to what had happened last year, at SummerSlam when he had the title opportunity and Damian was standing on the outside of the ring with the money in the bank and they showed a still shot of that. Great storytelling that, as you said, is something that they haven't always done in recent years. It felt like in the last, I mean, you've been podcasting a while, so have I. And I know over the course of Top Rope Nation, we've said so many times it was almost like this company would punish you for having a good memory because they wanted you to just forget about stuff that happened. And it would seem like they would just like, oh, just forget that, just drop that. That never happened. And they would change the story all the time. But they leave these threads now. And that's a credit to Paul Levesque, who sometimes I'm still critical of, but he has done a good job of laying these breadcrumbs and then coming back to him. Like we mentioned with the Randy Orton thing. Like we mentioned here, this was a year ago, and it all makes sense on how this played out. And so if you have a good memory and you remember those details, they're rewarding you for that. And that definitely has not always been the case for the last 25 years. I would argue.
Yeah,
So yeah, I really appreciate that. So we'll see. We'll see. Now, the other big thing last night, the more I'm thinking about this, Rob, I think I liked Raw better than SummerSlam. To be honest with you, I know you guys on the Top Rope Nation review, you guys were kind of all over the map. You were a little bit more positive on it than Justin was for sure. And then Jesse was kind of there in the middle. I gave yesterday on this show, I gave SummerSlam like a C plus. I thought it was a little bit above average. To me, a C is like an average show. It was a little bit above average. I bumped it up because of Roman's return. But there were some little things about it I didn't like that much. I thought Drew and Punk just didn't live up to the hype I had for it going in. But they fixed that by separating Rollins now. I like the debuts last night. I like the evolution of these storylines. And we got another debut last night. Big presentation at the end of New Day and AOP, who had a match. New Day won that match. Woods got the win. And then after the match, out comes Odyssey Jones. And he helps out New Day in clearing the ring and helping everyone stand tall, after all the interference from the Final Testament on the other side. And, Odyssey Jones is a spectacle. This is a big dude. He's 6'5", 300 plus pounds. He's kind of been in and out of pro wrestling since he originally signed with WWE back around like 2018 or 19, I believe. He stepped away for a little bit, came back, did the NXT thing. But they gave him a big showcase on Raw last night too to kind of reward people who have followed him a little bit through NXT. What did you think of Odyssey Jones last night?
I was shocked more than anything that he came in. Like that was the last person I would have expected to help
Yes.
the New Day. The fact that he picked up both like members of AOP,
Mm-hmm.
that was nuts. I would, that was crazy. And then he took out Karrion Cross like it was really easy. I Teenage Mutant New Day, as I called them last night. I mean, they both had that. They were
Yeah.
both plugging their new action figures. They, I liked, I liked the whole segment. I liked how they did that. But I really, really enjoyed Xavier Woods' reaction to this. because he was very like, if you picked up on the nuance, he was very hesitant. Like, what is this guy doing, and who is he? And he's not a New Day member. He's wearing a New Day shirt. You could tell what he was thinking,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of curious to see where they go with this. And I mean, it did change right away when you saw Otis and start dancing with them, and so that kind of threw me off a little bit because he went from being very serious for a moment to not being as serious. So I am I do want to see where this obviously goes because he did seem very hesitant, and he kind of, just the way he was reacting kind of made Karrion Kross make sense in a way.
Yeah.
It did. So I know I know one thing for sure. I don't want to see Kofi and Xavier feud. I That's just something I don't want, and they've always said that they don't want to split up or be one of those
Mm-hmm.
teams that splits up. So I don't know if that's been changed or if they've been talked to, like persuaded to go that route. We'll have to see. So
Yeah, they've been saying in media interviews for years and years that they don't want to ever split up. So I mean, this has been a long time coming. If they do, they've been together for so long. I mean, I see Chuck in the chat mentioning Kofi versus Woods, the Survivor Series, maybe. We'll see, but I mean, this is another thing where they were definitely leaving that trail of breadcrumbs with, him looking, Xavier looking a little skeptical as Kofi backstage was really putting over Odyssey. So, they got a lot of different directions they could go here. We'll quick hit some stuff and then more talking points probably on why it's 6. Um, Elsewhere on the show, let's see. We had Sheamus have a match with Ludwig Kaiser. He had Pete Dunne come out, so he attempted to cost Sheamus the match, unsuccessful. Sheamus still won. I thought the women's division had a kind of a rough night last night on Raw to, not be as positive. They had a match with Lyra Valkyria and Shayna Baszler. Valkyria got the win. And then afterwards, the heels were all beating down Valkyria, and then Damage Control came out. They made the save. They had Sonya Deville and Dakota Kai announced for a match later in the show, but then Dakota Kai's injured leg got attacked backstage. So what they ended up doing was they had Sonya Deville work a match with Io Sky. And this was like the second to last match on the show. And this match was pretty rough. Io Sky's great in the ring. Sonya just really wasn't keeping up with her. It was pretty slow paced, not very good. Easily the worst match of the night, I thought. Io got the win. But that was not too great. Do you have any thoughts on any of that, Rob?
yeah, I would completely agree with you. The it was just odd the way they went with that because the previous week we saw Lyra teaming with Katana and Caden. So the fact that they just switched it up already, it was just, I was kind of like, well, why did they not show up? That was just kind of like my thought, but it was also one of those things where maybe get they're just trying to get over um, they're just trying to get Kari and the go, or basically trying to get them over is what I was thinking, because they're getting both the heels and the faces over is the way I looked
Yeah.
at it. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the match itself was just, I don't know, the crowd didn't dig it either. I know I didn't dig it because I got up and got water. So
Yeah.
it was just one of those things where it kind of killed the mood. But the thing is, I like both those wrestlers, so I don't know if it was just the presentation that started it or what happened. It just didn't bring that intensity that everything else was bringing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. They've been trying to make Damage Control. They've trying to been flipping them babyface, and it hasn't really taken off too much. But they're in the midst of trying to do that. We've got all of that. That was probably the weak point of the show, I would say. And sounds like you agree. Now, they in the main event slot, they had Wyatt Six make their in-ring debut in a proper match. They announced this last week, 6-man tag. against the Creeds and Gable, American made. And overall, I would have to say that this played out pretty much how I thought. I'm always very, very skeptical this kind of stuff in pro wrestling. Rest in peace, Bray Wyatt. But the stuff he was doing with the Fiend, I was never a fan of. I just doesn't work for me. And here I was a little concerned when they debuted these guys that it was going to get too supernatural. And they pretty much held that off at just the smoke for the supernatural stuff. And I didn't want them to wrestle as the characters, with the masks. I felt like they should come out, unmask, and then it's like, yeah, we all know who these people are. And, they really sold that on commentary. Michael Cole in particular, he was selling the point that these people really think they're those characters, but, we know who they really are and their history here in the company. I think that is the exact right way to do this, because the supernatural spooky stuff always has a shelf life, unless you're the Undertaker, and that was a whole different era of pro wrestling. I don't think that long term that can work once you actually have to work matches. And we saw that, unfortunately, with the Fiend, and the Fiend just lost all of his momentum once he had to work the matches and he was still doing the supernatural stuff. Here, they worked, as the normal people who we know that they are. And overall, I thought it was pretty effective. It wasn't like a blowaway tag team match or anything. Of course, the Wyatt Six got the win. There's no way they were going to lose here. You had Bo, Uncle Howdy, and Nikki Cross, the Witch, Abby the Witch. They just sat out in the entrance aisle watching the whole match. But you get Rowan in there, you get Loomis and Gacy, and I thought it was effective. I didn't really have any problems with it, and that's me being a skeptic of this group. So, what did you think of it, Rob?
I thought it was really good. The one thing I really liked was the tribute to Luke Harper, or Brody. So I thought that was really good. So I enjoyed all of this. I thought it was really, really good.
Yeah,
It was
effective way to close Raw.
Yeah, and it was a fast action paced match, and it went exactly the way it should have gone. So overall, they did really good. Crowd ate it up. The theme song is just a certified banger, in my opinion, and I'm glad they kept that, because I absolutely love that theme.
It's honestly one of the few good themes they have in the company right now. There's been a lot of dialogue on Twitter and everywhere about how, man, WWE themes have really gone downhill, and a lot of them are very generic. I agree, and they don't really separate people from the pack. But this one works. It's very good. Them posing in the ring with the theme going, crowd going nuts to end the show was super effective. And yeah, it was a good end to Raw, I thought. I'll say that. So most everything outside of what was happening in the women's division last night worked pretty well. And that's not, Ripley and Liv was effective. So at the top of the women's division, they did a good job. Kind of the undercard stuff maybe was the weak point of the show, I thought. So yeah. Let's see real quickly here. We can run down the card for week 2 of the Great American Bash, NXT tonight. We don't do a lot of NXT talk here on One True Sport Daily, but we always mention it, and we'll talk about it tomorrow if there's any big news coming out of it. But this is 8 Eastern tonight on Sci-Fi. This is the cards. You got the NXT Championship, Ethan Page defending against Ora Mensa. You get the NXT Women's North American title with Kelani Jordan defending against Tatum Paxley. You get the NXT tag titles with Axiom and Frazier defending against MSK. Joe Hendry going to be in action against Joe Coffey. Trick Williams versus Pete Dunne. And Ren Sinclair versus Kendall Gray. Let me ask you one final question here, Rob, before we take it home. Do you believe in Joe Hendry?
Absolutely, 100%. Because if I didn't, what the hell am I doing here? You have to believe. There's certain things in life you believe in, and that is one of them.
Nice.
Death, taxes, and believing in Joe Hendry.
And there you go. Perfectly said. Rob, I appreciate you joining. This has been a lot of fun, man. 35 minutes just flew by right now.
Oh man, thanks for having me. I had a blast too, and I really appreciate it. I had fun.
Where can the listeners find more of your work?
Guys, you can follow me at Rob Wilkins. Otherwise, you can listen to me every Friday at 3 o'clock Eastern on Fightful Overbook for Coexisting with Rob and Maggie. We have a good old time, just talk everything that's happened like during the week or what's coming on, like what's coming up. We are definitely what we call the rated R show for Fightful, believe it or not. We definitely cross the line, but we have a blast. So it's definitely worth it, and I hope you check it out sometime if you haven't.
Awesome. Yeah, check it out. You guys do a great job. Maggie's hilarious. So awesome work over there at Fightful. And yeah, as I said at the top, you check me out at Top Rope Nation every Thursday night. Large total catalog of shows going back to like 2016. We've been doing the show for just over 8 years now. So if you check out the podcast feed, hundreds of episodes. Like I said, Rob was just on our show this past weekend. You can find our shows on YouTube as well. Subscribe to Top Rope Nation. Would really, really appreciate that and your support over there. So I will be back tomorrow morning with another guest co-host. We'll keep that chair warm for Zach for his return next week and keep it fun here. It's been blast having Rob, great having Jesse yesterday, and we got more things planned coming up this week. So make sure you tune in tomorrow at the same time, 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central. And yeah, we'll see all you guys tomorrow. Thanks for your support, everybody. Take care. Have a good day.